When I first moved my business to the new warehouse, I was thrilled. The rent was significantly cheaper compared to my previous location, and it seemed like the perfect place to store my goods. I run an online sales business, and every night, I come here to prepare and dispatch the day's orders. The warehouse was a vast, dimly lit space, with rows of shelves filled with neatly labeled boxes. I am meticulous about organization. It helps me keep track of everything and ensures orders are accurate. For the first few nights, everything went smoothly. But then, strange things began to happen. One night as I was preparing a delivery, I noticed that some boxes were not in their designated spots. I always make sure everything is in its place, so this anomaly struck me as odd. I brushed it off, attributing it to my own possible oversight during the move. The next night, I found more boxes displaced. This time, I was certain something was off. Again, I brushed it off, trying to maintain a logical stance. There must be a reasonable explanation, I told myself. Perhaps I had been more fatigued than I realized and misplaced them myself. However, over the next few nights, the disturbances became more frequent and unsettling. Every night, I found more boxes moved, some even opened. My frustration grew, but so did my curiosity. The final straw came when I found a whole row of boxes shifted to the opposite side of the warehouse. This was no longer something I could dismiss as my own mistake. Despite my logical nature and disbelief in the supernatural, I decided to check the security camera footage. What I saw sent chills down my spine. There on the grainy footage was the figure of a little girl, moving among the shelves. She appeared only after I had left for the night, and always disappeared under the blind spot of the camera. Rage and confusion filled me. Why was this girl in my warehouse? How did she get in, and what did she want? I had to put an end to this. Fueled by anger, I drove to the warehouse in the dead of night. I stormed inside, shouting for the girl to come out. My voice echoed through the empty space, but no one responded. I searched every corner, every aisle, but there was no sign of her. In frustration, I locked the warehouse and left, determined to find out what was going on. The next night, I approached the warehouse with a sense of dread. As I unlocked the door, I noticed something on the metal surface. My breath caught in my throat as I read the words scrawled across it. "I am sorry," written in what appeared to be blood. Fear gripped me, and I stumbled back, my mind racing. What did she want? And why was she haunting my warehouse? I stood there, staring at the blood-red apology, realizing that my new, cheaper warehouse had come with a price far greater than I had ever anticipated. I've contemplated moving again, but the logistics and costs are daunting. For now, I remain here, constantly on edge, knowing that something, or someone, is always watching. The little girl's words, "I am sorry," echo in my mind. It has been months since the incident, but I can't shake the feeling that I'm not alone in this warehouse. Since that night, I found it impossible to concentrate on my work. Every creak of the building, every flicker of light, sends me into a spiral of anxiety. I've stopped doing night deliveries, opting instead to handle everything during the day. But even then, the feeling of being watched persists. Working the night shift in an industrial warehouse is not exactly thrilling, but it pays the bills. I am in charge of packing groceries for delivery the next morning. It's a monotonous job, but I don't mind. Tonight, though, the temperature was colder than usual. I shrugged it off, thinking it might have been the manager's doing because a new shipment of frozen goods had just come in. As I moved boxes from the pallets, a particular address caught my eye. It seemed familiar, but I could not place it right away. I didn't think much of it and started packing the order. As I packed, I noticed the groceries the customer had ordered were all items I liked a lot. I laughed to myself, thinking about how I could take some home later to cook my favorite dish. The next day, during the change of shift, I saw the same box being brought back. It had been marked indeliverable, Curious, I asked the morning shift worker about it. He told me the address led to an abandoned building. My heart skipped a beat. Abandoned. During my break, I could not resist Googling the address. My hands trembled as I realized it was my childhood home. Memories flooded back. Playing in the yard, the smell of my mother's cooking wafting through the air. She had passed away years ago, but those memories were vivid and warm. Suddenly, I remembered the groceries in the box. Every single item was something my mother used to cook for me when she was alive. The chills I felt weren't just from the cold warehouse anymore. I was torn between feeling creeped out and strangely comforted. Could my mother be trying to communicate with me from the afterlife? I took a deep breath and decided to open the box. Inside, there were fresh vegetables, cut of meat, and all the spices she used to use. My mind dumbfounded and confused as I unpacked the goods from the boxes to be placed back where they belong. That night, I could not shake the feeling that my mother was reaching out to me. I decided to cook the meal just as she used to. As the familiar aromas filled my kitchen, I felt a sense of peace and connection. It was as if she was right there with me, guiding my hands and comforting my heart. The experience left me with a deep sense of wonder. Was this a coincidence, or had my mother found a way to communicate with me? I chose to believe the latter. It brought me comfort, knowing she was still watching over me, using the ingredients of our shared memories to remind me of her love. From that day forward, the warehouse didn't feel as cold or lonely. I carried the warmth of my mother's presence with me, knowing that love transcends even the boundaries of life and death. Every time I packed an order, I could not help but wonder whether another message from her would come through. And while the eerie feeling never completely left, it was accompanied by a deep sense of comfort and connection. I learned to embrace the mystery and cherish the memories, knowing that my mother's love was always with me, guiding me through the cold nights in the warehouse and beyond. Working in a warehouse that stores pharmaceutical equipment for hospitals is usually routine. The days are filled with the hum of machinery, the beeping of forklifts, and the constant shuffle of boxes. I had been at this job for a few years, and nothing much ever happened to break the monotony. But one day, during a lunch break, everything changed. It was a typical day until our manager rushed in, breathless, announcing an urgent delivery. A piece of vital equipment needed to be sent to a hospital immediately. My colleague Mike and I quickly abandoned our lunch and headed back to the warehouse to locate the equipment. We navigated through the aisles, past rows of neatly stacked and labeled boxes, until we found the item in question. It was a large, sophisticated machine, brand new, wrapped in plastic. Using the forklift, we began to maneuver it onto the loading dock. As we were working, something strange happened. The other equipment around us started to turn on by themselves. At first, it was just one machine beeping softly, but then more and more joined in, their screens flickering to life. The odd thing was, these machines were all new, still wrapped in plastic, and none of them were plugged in. Mike and I exchanged bewildered glances. "Did you do that?" he asked, his voice shaky. I shook my head, my eyes wide with confusion. Before we could make sense of it, the situation escalated. The lights in the warehouse began to flicker, casting eerie shadows that danced on the walls. The hum of machinery grew louder, almost deafening. We were frozen, too stunned to move. It felt like we were trapped in some sort of electrical storm. The machines buzzed and whirred, their displays flashing erratically. It was chaos, but what was most unsettling was a feeling of an unseen presence, as if something or someone was there with us, manipulating the equipment. The ordeal lasted only 2 minutes, but to me, it felt like an eternity. Then, just as suddenly as it had begun, it stopped. The machines powered down, the lights stabilized, and the warehouse fell silent. Mike and I stood there, our hearts pounding, struggling to comprehend what had just happened. We finished loading the machine onto the truck in stunned silence, our hands shaking. As we closed the warehouse doors, we finally spoke. "What the hell was that?" Mike asked, his voice a mix of fear and disbelief. "I don't know," I replied, still trying to steady my breathing. But it was real. We both saw it. We made the delivery and returned to the warehouse, unable to shake the eerie feeling. We tried to rationalize what had happened. Maybe it was a power surge or a glitch in the system, we told ourselves. But deep down, we knew it was something more, something we could not explain. In the following days, we could not stop talking about it. The other workers noticed our unease and asked what was wrong, but we hesitated to share the story, fearing they would think we were crazy. Eventually, the incident became a whispered legend among the staff, a ghost story that no one could quite believe but could not entirely dismiss either. Even now, when I walk through the warehouse, I can't help but glance at the equipment, half expecting them to come to life again. The experience left a mark on me, a reminder that sometimes there are things beyond our understanding, lurking just beneath the surface of our everyday lives. I still don't know what caused the machines to turn on that day, but I do know one thing. The warehouse, with its silent rows of dormant machines, will never feel the same again. And every time I pass the spot where it happened, I feel a chill, as if the ghost in the machine is still there, waiting for its next opportunity to make itself known. If you have enjoyed the content so far, consider leaving a like and subscribe. It really helps the channel grow and continue making videos that keeps you awake at night. With that, we will see you on the next video.